So today I just want to talk briefly about volcanic evolution, and specifically why some ocean island systems don't follow the traditional Hawaiian model as is demonstrated schematically here. In this traditional Hawaiian model, magmatism will start at the leading edge of the hotspot track with what is known as the pre-shield stage of magmatic activity, characterized by the eruption of alkali basalts at the surface. However, over time, these new volcanic systems will be dragged across the center of plume upwelling, where there is the largest flux of magma into the system. This large flux of magma into the system will cause the development of shallow magma storage regions and the eruption of large volumes of phodiatic to transitional basalts, and this characterizes the shield phase of magmatic activity. With time though, these systems are eventually moved past that main center of plume upwelling and the flux of magma into the system will start to decrease. This decrease in the melt flux is accompanied by a deepening in the magma storage regions and the return of alkali basalts at the surface, characterizing the post-shield phase of magmatic activity. And this simple model seems to work very nicely for the Hawaiian Islands, but it is unclear how appropriate it is for other ocean island systems worldwide. And the reason for that is Hawaii actually represents a very weird anomaly within ocean island magmatism. For example, it is one of the only mantle plumes worldwide that does not interact with a nearby mid-ocean ridge spreading center. In addition, it is by far one of the strongest mantle plumes currently present on our Earth. And both of these things will influence factors such as the flux of magma into the lithosphere and the area over which this magma flux occurs. So what we want to do here is look at other ocean island systems and ask whether this Hawaiian model actually applies elsewhere. So that's what we're going to do, focusing in on the Galapagos Archipelago. Now, to look at volcanic evolution, the easiest way to do this would be to potentially look at different volcanic centers in different areas of the ocean island chain to see if they fit different stages of that traditional Hawaiian model. So we can do that in the Galapagos. We can focus in on these three southern volcanic centers of Serra Azul, Sierra Negra, and Floriana, and ask whether these fit that traditional Hawaiian model. So we're going to start with Serra Azul in the western Galapagos, at the leading edge of the Galapagos platform. Now, this system shows quite a large extent of heterogeneity in the composition of eruptive basalts, and OPAM barometry indicates that these basalts were likely stored within the lower crust. And these features have been suggested to represent somewhat of an early phase of the shield stage of magmatic activity beneath Serra Azul. The true shield phase of magmatic activity in the Galapagos is demonstrated by Sierra Negra, which is located directly above the center of plume upwelling. And here we have a mid-crustal magma storage region and a very narrow range in the composition of eruptive products at the surface. And this has been used to suggest that this mid-crustal storage region efficiently buffers or homogenizes the composition of ascending melts. However, this changes quite rapidly as we move further east, where there is a much lower flux of magma into the lithosphere. So on Floriana, what we actually have is very deep magma storage within the uppermost portion of the mantle below the base of the crust. And we see very alkaline compositions erupted at the surface. So Isla Floriana really looks like this classic post-shield phase of magmatic activity. And so overall, when we compare these three different volcanic centers, what we appear to have is a situation that looks very similar to that traditional Hawaiian model. We have the growth of a shield stage system between Serra Azul and Sierra Negra, and then eventually decreasing melt flux moving further east, deepening of magma storage, and a movement into this post-shield phase of magmatic activity. However, trying to look at volcanic evolution by comparing three potentially independent volcanic centers in this manner is problematic. What we'd actually like to be able to do is look at volcanic evolution by comparing the shield and post-shield phases of activity of a single volcanic center. And luckily, Isla Floriana gives us the opportunity to do that. And that's because contained within erupted Floriana basalts are these cumulate xenoliths. Now, most of the cumulate xenoliths share geochemical signatures that are almost indistinguishable from their host basalts. However, there are a presence of rare gabbroic xenoliths that have geochemical signatures that look nothing like any basalt currently exposed on the surface of Isla Floriana. Instead, these gabbroic xenoliths share many geochemical similarities with recently erupted basalts on Serra Azul and Sierra Negra, these shield stage systems of the Western Galapagos Archipelago. And these geochemical similarities have been used to suggest that the gabbroic senilis of Isla Floriana represents a remnant of an ancient magmatic system beneath the island, from when this island was located much closer to the central plume upwelling around 2.5 million years ago. And therefore these gabbros potentially provide us insights into the shield stage of magmatic activity on Isla Floriana. So what we might have expected to see when we started looking at these gabbros is storage pressures that more or less overlap with the storage pressures estimated for the present day shield stage systems of the Western Galapagos. That's around 200 to 400 megapascals or so. However, clinoproxene orthoproxene thermobarometry indicates that magma storage is likely much deeper, below the base of the crust, potentially around 600 megapascals. This high pressure storage of these Floriana gabbros is also supported by other calculations. For example, thermodynamic calculations indicate that the orthoproxene bearing assemblage observed in all the Floriana gabbros can only be recreated between approximately 400 and 600 megapascals. This broadly overlaps with the pressures estimated by the clinoproxene orthoproxene thermobarometry and indicates that these Floriana gabbros must be stored at the base of the crust, if not even deeper. Now critically, this indicates that there isn't a substantial change in the magma storage conditions between the ancient shield stage Floriana system and the present day post-shield stage system. Over a 2.5 million year history of Floriana, the depth of magma storage hasn't changed dramatically. And in fact, we have no evidence to suggest that there was ever sustained crustal level magma storage beneath this island. And as such, Floriana really doesn't follow this traditional Hawaiian model of magmatic evolution. It follows its own path. And the reason for this is quite simple. And it's actually related to the tectonic setting of the Galapagos Archipelago. For unlike Hawaii, the Galapagos lies close to a nearby mid-ocean ridge spreading centre, and the distances between the mantle plume and this spreading centre is constantly changing. 2.5 million years ago, when Floriana was located above the central plume upwelling, the plume was also located around 100 kilometres closer to the ridge than it is at the present day. And this increased proximity is hypothesised to cause more melt formed within the mantle plume to be diverted northwards towards the ridge rather than ascending directly into the lithosphere beneath the islands themselves. Now, a lower melt flux into the lithosphere means deeper magma storage, and this is why we never saw the shallow magma storage systems that characterise a traditional shield phase of activity on Isla Floriana. And as I said at the start, Hawaii represents one of only a few mantle plumes worldwide that does not interact with a nearby mid-ocean ridge spreading centre, so perhaps this Hawaiian model of magmatic evolution isn't too applicable to many other systems. Thank you very much for listening.